The trophy wife's lie. Ethan Harper stared at the. It was 2008, and the world above was crumbling under the weight of the financial crisis. But down here, in the quiet town of Elmwood, Pennsylvania, Ethan was building something revolutionary. At 28, Ethan was brilliant, an electrical engineering graduate from IT who dreamed of changing the world with clean energy tech. His latest prototype, a compact, efficient battery management system for electric vehicles that could extend range by 40% without adding weight or cost. He'd poured years into it, sacrificing sleep, friendships, even his social life. That is when he met Victoria Lang. She was 24, stunning, with cascading auburn hair, emerald eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. Victoria worked as a waitress at a local diner while pursuing a political science degree part-time at the community college. She had big dreams to rise from her working class roots in a trailer park outside Pittsburgh to become someone important, a congresswoman, maybe even more. "I want to fight for the little people," she'd say, her voice fierce and passionate. They met when Ethan stopped in for coffee after a late-night session. She served him, flirted lightly, and soon they were dating. Victoria was ambitious, charismatic, the kind of woman who commanded attention. Ethan, shy and introspective, was smitten. She made him feel alive, purposeful. But Victoria's ambitions required money, lots of it. Campaigns, networking events, image consultants. Ethan saw how it weighed on her. "I can't do this without support," she confessed one night, tears in her eyes. Politics is a rich person's game. Ethan had a choice. His invention was nearing patent stage. If he sold it outright, he could fund her dreams. But he loved the work. Still, love won. He shelved his engineering career, took a remote consulting job that paid well but bored him, and quietly filed the patents under anonymous trusts. The first royalty check came in 2010, $500,000. Then more. Companies licensed his tech. Tesla prototypes, foreign EV makers. By 2012, millions were rolling in, funneled through shell entities to avoid attention. Ethan proposed in 2011. Victoria said yes, beaming. Their wedding was modest, but perfect. She called him her rock. He called her his future. No one knew the money was his. Ethan donated anonymously to her early local campaigns, school board, then state legislature run. Through PACs, dark money channels he researched meticulously. Victoria rose quickly, charismatic speeches about overcoming poverty, rags to riches stories that resonated. "I grew up with nothing," she'd say on the stump. "Food stamps, hand-me-downs. But hard work and opportunity lifted me up. The crowds loved it. Donors poured in, or so it seemed." In reality, Ethan's hidden millions seeded everything. He didn't mind. Supporting her was his new dream. By 2016, Victoria Harper, keeping her maiden name for branding, was a state senator in Pennsylvania. Glamorous, telegenic, she was a rising Democratic star. Interviews on CNN, fundraisers with celebrities. Her narrative, self-made woman from humble beginnings. Ethan stayed in the background, the supportive husband, the quiet tech consultant who worked from home. At events, he'd smile, shake hands, fade into the shadows. Victoria shone. "She is the trophy," whispered some in Washington circles. Beautiful, polished arm candy for photo ops. But Ethan knew better. She was brilliant, driven. The affair started in 2018. His name was Marcus Hale, a slick lobbyist for green energy firms. Ironically, firms licensing Ethan's patents without knowing it. Marcus was charming, connected, mid-40s, divorced. He wined and dined Victoria during late-night strategy sessions on climate bills. Ethan noticed the changes first: late nights, new lingerie, secretive texts. He confronted her once. "It is nothing," she said, kissing him. "Just work." He believed her, or wanted to. Victoria announced her congressional run in 2020 for Pennsylvania's 12th district, a swing seat. The campaign was brutal, millions needed. Ethan ramped up donations, anonymous Max, outs to her PAC, Sue per Pascal C's, he controlled indirectly. She won narrowly, portraying herself as the working-class hero beating big money. In Congress 2021 onward, Victoria thrived. Committee assignments, media darling. Her personal wealth grew explained as savvy investments, speaking fees. But it was Ethan's royalties transferred subtly. The affair deepened. Marcus helped with legislation favoring his clients. Quid pro quo whispers, but nothing proven. Ethan discovered it in 2023, hotel receipts, photos on her phone she forgot to delete. Devastated, he retreated further, drank more, worked less. But he kept donating, for the cause, he told himself. Re-election 2024 loomed. Victoria geared up, bigger than ever. The published shot showed Victoria in emerald silk, laughing up at Ethan as he held the umbrella over her in the rain. The caption read, "The future of American politics and the quiet man who makes it possible." Ethan kept a print of it, pinned to the dartboard in the basement. Some nights, he threw darts at his own smiling face until the paper shredded. Publicly, he perfected invisibility. At events, he stood half a step behind her left shoulder, hands clasped, eyes scanning for threats that never came. People forgot he was there within 30 seconds. Exactly as planned. Privately, the fractures multiplied. She started locking her phone. She started scheduling girls' nights that ended with her slipping into bed at 4 a.m. Alcohol and some sharper scent on her skin. She started saying things like, "You're so lucky. You don't have to perform all the time," while staring at him like he was furniture. One night in 2017, after a CNN hit where she'd crushed a Republican senator on live television, she came home wired and triumphant. She pushed him against the hallway wall, kissed him hard enough to split his lip, then whispered, "I need more, Ethan. I need to feel something bigger than this house, this town, this life." He tasted blood and champagne and the future ending. He smiled against her mouth and said, "Then take it, Vic. Take everything you need." She never heard the tremor beneath the words. Marcus Hale was introduced to them at a Georgetown rooftop in October 2018. The air smelled of gin and ambition. Marcus wore a midnight blue suit and a smile that said he already knew every secret you were about to tell him. Victoria's hand lingered in his 2 seconds too long. Ethan noticed, because he noticed everything now. He noticed the way Marcus's eyes tracked her when she moved through the crowd. He noticed the way Victoria's laugh changed pitch when Marcus whispered something at her ear. Later, in the elevator down, Victoria said, "He can get my clean energy bill out of committee before Christmas." Ethan said, "Good." She studied his reflection in the brass panel. "You don't like him. I don't have to like him, you do." That night, Ethan sat in the dark basement and pulled up Marcus's client list. Third from the top, Aurora Drive Systems $30 annual licensing payment to Harper Innovations, LLC, $9.4 million. Marcus was lobbying for money that belonged, in a very real sense, to Ethan. He laughed then, a short, ugly sound that startled him because it didn't sound human. 2 weeks later, he wired another $2.3 million through new channels, enough to hire the best opposition researcher in D.C., enough to flood the airwaves in 2020, enough to make sure Victoria would need Marcus again, and again, and again. Election night 2020. The ballroom smelled of sweat, cheap cologne, and desperation. At 11:43 p.m., the networks called it. Victoria was already on stage when Ethan pushed through the crush of bodies. Confetti cannons exploded. Someone shoved a phone in his face for a reaction quote. He smiled the smile he'd practiced in mirrors for 8 years and said, "I'm just proud of my wife." She found him backstage afterward, pupils blown wide from adrenaline and something else. She kissed him in front of staffers, cameras, strangers, hard, possessive, marking territory. Later, in the suite, she stripped him with shaking hands. "Say it," she panted against his throat. "Say you're proud of me." "I'm proud of you," he said, and thrust into her so brutally the headboard cracked against the wall. She came screaming his name, nails drawing blood down his back. When she finally fell asleep, Ethan slipped out of bed and stood on the balcony in the freezing November air below. Pittsburgh glittered like circuitry. He opened his phone and stared at the wire transfer he had scheduled for the morning. $1.5 million to the super PAC that had just buried her opponent in attack ads. His thumb hovered over confirm. He thought about the next 6 years, the next 20. He thought about the way she had looked at Marcus across the rooftop 2 years earlier. He pressed confirm. Then he went back inside, crawled into bed, and lay awake counting her breaths until sunrise, memorizing the rhythm of the life he was about to burn to the ground. The distance was no longer measured in miles. It was measured in secrets, and the countdown had already begun. The first real warning came in March 2021, 3 months after Victoria was sworn in. Ethan was in the kitchen, making coffee when her phone buzzed on the counter. She was still upstairs, singing in the shower. He glanced at the screen out of habit, old reflex from years of watching everything. Sender, Marcus message preview. Last night was electric. Can't stop thinking about. The rest vanished behind the lock screen. Ethan's pulse spiked so hard he felt it in his teeth. He set the phone down exactly as he'd found it, poured 2 mugs, and carried them upstairs, like nothing had happened. When Victoria emerged in a towel, hair dripping, she kissed his cheek, took her coffee, and said, "Committee meetings all day. Don't wait up." She left at 7:45, and she didn't come home until 2:17 a.m. Ethan spent the evening in the basement, staring at the go board he'd set up weeks earlier. He placed a single black stone in the center, neutral territory, no immediate threat. Then he opened his laptop and began pulling credit card statements from the joint account she never checked. One charge, the Hay Adams Hotel, DC date, March 15 amount, $1,872.14 memo, suite 412. Overnight, he didn't need the room number. He already knew who was in suite 412. He closed the laptop, placed a white stone next to his black one, and watched the 2 stones touch. Contact, no retreat possible now. That night, he lay in bed listening to her breathe, slow, even, satisfied. He didn't touch her. He didn't sleep. He found the second piece of evidence on April 2. Victoria had left her laptop open on the dining table while she took a call in the study. Ethan moved silently, heart thudding like a trapped animal. He opened her browser in private mode, old trick, and typed the hotel name into the search bar. Autofill completed the rest. The Hay Adams Hotel confirmation number, HA04152021, 412 check, in April 15, 8 o'clock p.m. checkout, April 16. 7:30 a.m. guest, Victoria Lang, Harper plus Marcus Hale. He stared at the screen until his vision tunneled. Then, he deleted the search history, closed the laptop, and walked into the study. She was still on the phone, laughing at something, Marcus said. When she saw Ethan in the doorway, she smiled brightly, waved him in, mouthed, "1 minute." He waited. He listened to her say, "Yes, absolutely. Let's do dinner tomorrow, same place." She hung up, turned to him, and said, "Hey you, everything okay?" Ethan held up the printed hotel confirmation he'd taken from the printer tray, still warm. Her smile froze, then melted, then reformed into something practiced, fragile. "Ethan, it's not what you think." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "It's exactly what I think." She started crying immediately. Big, beautiful tears that had worked on donors, reporters, voters. It was one time. A mistake. Stress. I was lonely. You're always in the basement. He cut her off. Lonely. You're the most photographed woman in Pennsylvania. You have a staff of 12. You have Marcus Hale's number on speed dial. She reached for him. He stepped back. "Don't," he said quietly. She sank into the chair, sobbing harder. "I love you. I swear I do. This doesn't change anything." He looked down at her. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect lies, and felt something inside him finally snap clean. "It changes everything," he said. He walked out of the room. He walked down to the basement. He locked the door, and he began to play. Ethan Harper sat alone in the basement workshop that had once been his sanctuary of creation. The servers still hummed softly in the background, but the soldering irons and prototype boards gathered dust on the shelves. Tonight, the only light came from a single desk lamp illuminating a black lacquered go board he had ordered online 2 weeks ago, delivered discreetly in plain packaging. 19 horizontal lines intersected 19 vertical lines, forming 361 points of possibility. Black stones and white stones rested in shallow wooden bowls on either side. Ethan had never played Go seriously before, not until the night he watched the final episode of a Korean drama Victoria had dismissed as some violent soap opera. She had fallen asleep on the couch halfway through, leaving him alone with Moondong, Ewan's cold, methodical revenge. He remembered the scene vividly. Dong, Eon placing stones on the board, explaining to her plastic. surgeon ally, how every move was planned years in advance, how she never struck directly with her own hand, how she let her enemies surround themselves, trap themselves, destroy themselves. Ethan had paused the show, rewound, and watched it again. Then he bought the board. Now, 3 months later, the basement had become his war room. He picked up a black stone between his index and middle fingers. The proper way he had learned from YouTube tutorials and online forums, and placed it on the 4-4 point in the upper right corner, a classic opening claiming territory while inviting response. Victoria was white, always white, pure, polished, untouchable. He placed a white stone for her in response, imagining her instinctive aggression, the 3-4 point, pushing for early influence, overconfident. Stone by stone, he played both sides. Each black stone represented a piece of evidence he had gathered: bank transfer records, patent licensing agreements, anonymous donation timestamps synced to her campaign filings. Each white stone was a move she had already made without realizing it. Public statements about her personal wealth from savvy investments, interviews where she claimed to have bootstrapped everything from nothing. He played slowly, deliberately, letting hours pass. When he made a mistake as black, he reset the board and started over. There was no room for error. On the wall behind the board, he had pinned printouts, a sprawling web of red yarn connecting names, dates, entities. At the center, Victoria Lang Harper, congresswoman. Radiating outward, the Sue per Pascal C's, the anonymous LLCs, Marcus Hale's lobbying firm. The green, energy companies unknowingly paying Ethan millions for technology he invented in this very room. A separate corkboard held photos, not lurid ones of the affair. Those existed on an encrypted drive, but public images. Victoria smiling at fundraisers funded by his money. Victoria on the House floor, championing clean energy subsidies that benefited Marcus's clients. Victoria on morning shows, tearfully recounting her rags to riches story while wearing dresses bought with royalties from his patents. He placed another black stone, cutting into White's territory. In Go, the strongest players didn't attack head on, they built thickness, unshakable groups that could support distant invasions. They let opponents overextend, then punished the weakness. Victoria had overextended for years. She had built her entire brand on a lie, the self-made woman from the trailer park. Every speech, every interview, every donor pitch reinforced it. If the truth emerged that her personal wealth was millions in hidden spousal donations routed through dark money channels, it wouldn't just be embarrassing, it would be catastrophic. Campaign finance laws were murky on anonymous donations through PACs, but congressional financial disclosures were not. She had signed forms under penalty of perjury, stating her assets came from legitimate sources. She had never disclosed that the seed money, the momentum, the ability to outspend opponents, it was all Ethan. He placed a white stone in Atari, then rescued it with another. He let her live, for now. The affair with Marcus was the secondary front, useful but not decisive. It would hurt her image, perhaps trigger an ethics probe for influence peddling, but infidelity scandals faded. Politicians survived worse. Number the kill shot was the money. He opened a notebook beside the board, handwritten, never digital, and reviewed the timeline he had constructed. 2012, first major royalty deposit, an anonymous $250,000 to her state Senate PAC within weeks. 2016, $1,200,000 in her $1 million surge, her unexpected primary win. 2020, $4,800,000 routed through 3 layers of LLCs, equals congressional victory. 2022, 2024, ongoing transfers disguised as investment income on her disclosures. Every correlation was documented. Every trail led back to trusts he controlled. He had even kept the original patent applications with his name redacted but traceable through metadata and old emails. Black stone, white stone. He played out a Joseki, a standard corner sequence, then deviated deliberately, sacrificing a small group to gain influence elsewhere. Sacrifice was key. He would lose things too, privacy, perhaps some wealth if investigators dug too deep, the quiet life he had accepted in exchange for loving her. But she had sacrificed him first. He remembered a night 2 years ago. They were in their DC apartment, post-fundraiser. She'd had too much champagne and laughed, actually laughed, about how perfect he was. "You're like the ideal political spouse," she'd said, kissing his cheek. Smart enough to be useful, quiet enough to stay out of the way. No ego, no scandals. I got so lucky. He had smiled then, said nothing. Now he placed a black stone that surrounded a large white group on the edge. Co-fight approaching. In Go, a KO was a repeated capture situation. Both players could take, but only one at a time. It created tension across the board, forcing threats elsewhere to win the local battle. The timing of the leak would be his too early, and she could spin it as opposition research, rally sympathy, survive the election. Too late. And she'd already be entrenched for another term. He needed the moment when her campaign was at peak momentum. Donors committed, endorsements locked, polls surging. The moment when exposure would trigger maximum panic, maximum withdrawal. 2 weeks before election day, maybe 10 days, he opened his laptop, air-gapped, no internet, and pulled up the dossier folder. Hundreds of files meticulously organized, bank statements, wire confirmations, PAC filings, her signed financial disclosures, metadata screenshots, proving he controlled the donating entities. Everything referenced. He would not send it himself. That was amateur. He had already cultivated recipients. Alex Rivera, the investigative reporter who'd been circling dark money in Pennsylvania races for years. A whistleblower tip line for the House Ethics Committee. A non-profit watchdog group known for aggressive FOIAs, multiple drops, multiple sources. No single point of failure. Like liberties in a Go group, fill one eye, the group lives. Fill both, it dies. He would give them both eyes. Ethan leaned back, studying the board. White was overextended in 3 corners, thin in the center. Black had thickness everywhere, quiet influence. One more sequence, and white would be in deep trouble. He placed the final black stone of the night, a quiet move in the center that threatened 2 separate white groups at once. Victoria wouldn't even see it coming. He turned off the lamp, leaving the board exactly as it was. Tomorrow he would resume the game. Revenge, he had learned, was not about anger. It was about patience. It was about seeing 10 moves ahead. It was about letting your enemy build their own prison, stone by careful stone. Upstairs, he heard the faint sound of Victoria's shower running. She would come to bed soon, kiss his forehead, whisper, "Good night." Like nothing was wrong, he would pretend to sleep, and in the dark he would continue playing. Black's turn. By June, Ethan had 3 unwitting accomplices. Sarah Klein, Victoria's former deputy press secretary, had quit after a screaming match in the Capitol hallway. She now worked at a small progressive nonprofit and drank too much at happy hours. Ethan found her through LinkedIn, sent an anonymous tip about irregular campaign funding with just enough detail to hook her. She bit. Alex Rivera, the investigative reporter, had been circling dark money in Pennsylvania for years. Ethan fed him the first breadcrumb, a single PAC filing with a suspicious address that matched one of his Delaware LLCs. Alex emailed back within hours. "Who are you?" Ethan never replied. He didn't need to. The hook was set. The third was quieter, a forensic accountant named Priya Patel, who freelanced for ethics watchdogs. Ethan sent her a USB drive via courier. No return address, no fingerprints, containing redacted bank records that showed the flow of millions from his trusts into Victoria's campaign ecosystem. Priya would connect the dots. She always did. Ethan met none of them in person. He never spoke to them. He simply dropped stones onto their boards and watched the ripples spread. Every night he added another layer to the dossier. Every night he listened for Victoria's key in the lock, for her footsteps on the stairs, for the soft click of her bedroom door closing. She slept in the guest room now. She didn't ask why. He placed a black stone that threatened 3 white groups at once. In Go, this was called thickness. In life, it was called inevitability. July 2021. Victoria came home early for once, Yoon announced, eyes bright with something dangerous. She found Ethan in the kitchen, chopping onions for dinner. She leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, studying him like prey. "I've been thinking," she said. He kept chopping. "About kids." The knife paused mid-stroke. He looked up. She smiled. Slow, calculated. The same smile she used on camera when she wanted something. "We should have a baby," she said. "It's perfect timing. A congressional family. People love that. It humanizes me, softens the edges." Ethan set the knife down. His voice was very calm. "You want a baby for the photo op." She flinched but recovered fast. Number, I want a family, with you. He studied her face, the practiced vulnerability, the faint tremor she could summon on cue. Then he said the thing he'd known for months, but never spoken aloud. I had a vasectomy last year. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Her mouth opened, closed, color drained from her face. You, what? After the election, he said quietly. I wasn't sure I wanted to bring a child into this life, into our life. She stared at him like he'd slapped her. You didn't tell me. You weren't asking. She laughed, a short, brittle sound. So that's it? No kids? Ever? He met her eyes. That's it. She turned and walked out of the kitchen. He heard the front door slam. He heard her car peel out of the driveway. He picked up the knife again and finished chopping the onions. Tears streamed down his face, but they weren't from the onions. He had just taken away her next move, her next white stone, her next lie, and he had done it without raising his voice. The board was shrinking. White had fewer liberties left every day. Ethan wiped his eyes, rinsed the knife, and went downstairs to place another black stone. The game was no longer about winning. It was about making sure she lost everything she thought she owned. January 2024. The war room smelled of dry erase markers and fear. Victoria stood at the head of the conference table in her DC campaign office. Sleeves rolled up, eyes blazing. Polls had her up by 8 points, but she wasn't taking chances. Not this cycle. Not with the National Party eyeing her for leadership. Not with whispers of a future Senate run. Maybe even higher. We need 25 million by Labor Day, she said, voice like a whip. I want every donor maxed out. I want every PAC bleeding money into this race. Her team nodded frantically, laptops clacking. No one dared mention that the early money, the seed that made her look viable, had always appeared like magic. Ethan watched from the doorway, unseen. He had driven down unannounced, claiming he missed her. Really, he wanted to see it up close, the machine he had built, now devouring everything in its path. Victoria caught his reflection in the glass wall. For a split second, her mask slipped. Surprise, then something colder. Then the smile returned, radiant, practiced. Baby, she called, crossing the room to kiss him in front of everyone. Cameras on phones lifted discreetly. Perfect photo op. Supportive husband surprises congresswoman at work. Later, in her private office, door locked. She pressed him against the desk. You shouldn't have come, she whispered, but her hands were already unbuttoning his shirt. I wanted to see you win, he said, letting her think she still controlled the rhythm. They fucked quickly, desperately, her nails carving crescents into his shoulders. She bit his lip hard enough to draw blood and moaned his name like a threat. Afterward, she fixed her lipstick in a compact mirror. Marcus is hosting the big fundraiser next week, she said casually. Wall Street, Silicon Valley. We'll clear 8 figures. Ethan zipped his pants. I already wired the seed money, he said. 4 million split across 7 new entities. She froze. Then smiled again. Smaller this time. You're incredible, she said. I don't know what I'd do without you. He kissed her forehead, tasting the lie on her skin. You'll never have to find out, he whispered. But in the car on the drive home, alone on the dark interstate, he screamed until his throat bled. He was funding the very stage where she would bury him. April 2024. The night it all shattered. Ethan came home early from a rare errand, dry cleaning, groceries, the mundane chores she no longer noticed. The house was quiet, too quiet. He heard them before he saw them. Victoria's laugh, low, throaty, the one she saved for hotel rooms, coming from the upstairs bedroom, their bedroom. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate, heart detonating in his chest. The door was cracked open. Marcus had her bent over the foot of the bed, skirt rucked up, hand fisted in her hair. Victoria's eyes were closed, mouth open in ecstasy, whispering filth Ethan had never heard from her. God, yes, harder. He never fuck. He never makes me feel like this. Ethan stood in the doorway for 10 full seconds. 20. Long enough to memorize every detail, the way Marcus's wedding ring glinted. He'd remarried last year, the way Victoria's manicured nails clawed the duvet he'd bought her for their anniversary. Then Marcus looked up and saw him. Victoria opened her eyes. Time stopped. Marcus pulled out hastily, stammering. Victoria yanked her skirt down, face cycling through shock, guilt, defiance. Ethan, she started. He didn't scream. He didn't lunge. He simply looked at her, at the woman he had erased himself for, and said, very quietly, "You're not even good at hiding it anymore." Then he turned and walked downstairs. They followed minutes later, half-dressed, pleading. Marcus tried bluster. "This doesn't have to." Ethan cut him off with a look so cold. Marcus stepped back. Victoria reached for him, tears starting. "It's not what you think. I love you. I've always." He laughed. A raw, broken sound. "You love what I gave you," he said. "The money, the power, the life." "You never loved me," she slapped him. The crack echoed. His cheek burned, but he didn't move. "Do it again," he said softly. "Please." She didn't. Marcus left first, muttering apologies. Victoria collapsed on the couch, sobbing. Ethan stood over her. "I'm going to destroy you," he said, voice steady. "Not with my hands, not with anger. I'm going to take back everything I gave you, piece by piece, until you have nothing left but the trailer park you lied about escaping." She looked up, mascara streaking. "You wouldn't." He smiled for the first time in months. "Watch me." That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in the basement until dawn, go board lit by a single lamp. He played both sides furiously. Black stones slamming down like hammer blows, white stones retreating, surrounded. He opened the encrypted drive. The dossier was complete. Patent records with his original signatures. Bank trails linking every anonymous donation to his trusts. Her financial disclosures, signed, sworn, false. Time-stamped photos of her with Marcus, taken by a pie he'd hired months ago. Audio, one drunken voicemail from her to Marcus. "He's so pathetic, always in that basement. I need a real man." Everything referenced, dated, irrefutable. He composed the first anonymous email to Alex Rivera. Subject, Congresswoman Victoria Harper's self-made myth documents attached. He didn't send it yet. Timing was everything. He needed her at peak altitude, polls soaring, donors committed, endorsements locked. Then the fall would be fatal. He placed the final black stone on the board. White had one eye left, one liberty. He stared at it for a long time. Then he removed the stone. Not yet. Let her breathe a little longer. Let her think she'd survived the slap, the confrontation, the shame. Let her campaign soar. He would fill that last eye when it hurt the most. October 15, 2024, 19 days before the election. Victoria was in Philadelphia, headlining a massive rally. 40,000 people. National headlines, Harper poised for historic re-election margin. Ethan sat in the basement, cursor hovering over send. He had spent the morning watching her live stream. She wore red power color, voice strong, eyes fierce. The crowd chanted her name. She told the story again, trailer park, food stamps, bootstraps. Every word a lie built on his money. He pressed send. 5 emails, 5 recipients. Alex Rivera, the Reporter House Ethics Committee Whistleblower Portal Office of Congressional Ethics. 2 major watchdog nonprofits. 1 anonymous leak site known for maximum virality attached. The full dossier, 487 pages. Watermarked, undeniable. Within hours, the first story hit. Politico, exclusive. Documents raise questions about source of representatives Victoria, Harper's personal wealth. By evening, CNN breaking news Karen. By midnight, Harperly's trending nationwide. Donors started calling her campaign, panicked, pulling pledges. Victoria's plane landed at 1:14 a.m. She called Ethan 17 times. He didn't answer. He sat in the dark, watching the board. White's last eye, filled. The group was dead. The next 72 hours were apocalypse. Victoria burst into the house at 3 a.m., makeup streaked, hair wild. "How could you?" she screamed. "After everything after everything we." He looked up from the go board, calm. "You did this to yourself." She lunged at him, fists flying. He let her hit him once, twice, until she collapsed, sobbing on the floor. "You're destroying me," she whispered. "No," he said. "I'm freeing myself." By morning, the story mutated. New leaks, his doing, timed releases. Proof she had known about the patents since 2018, old emails. Affair photos published by a tabloid. Marcus's firm implicated in quid pro quo. Her chief of staff resigned. Her biggest super PAC froze funds. The DNC issued a terse, monitoring the situation. Victoria went on MSNBC that afternoon, tearful, defiant. "This is a vicious smear by my opponent and dark money forces who fear a strong woman." For 6 hours, it almost worked. Sympathy polls ticked up. Then Alex Rivera dropped the second bombshell, audio of Victoria laughing to Marcus about Ethan. My boring little ATM in the basement. The sympathy evaporated. By nightfall, major donors issued statements withdrawing support. Victoria sat alone in the living room, television muted on her own tearful interview looping. Ethan stood in the doorway. "It's over," he said. She looked up, eyes hollow. "I hate you," she whispered. He nodded. "Good," he said. "Now you know how I've felt for years." He turned and walked away. Behind him, he heard her start to scream. Not words, just raw, animal sound. The firestorm had only just begun, and he hadn't even played his final stone yet. October 18, 2024. 3 days into the firestorm, Victoria sat across from Ethan in the living room they hadn't shared in months. The television was off for once. Outside, reporters camped on the lawn like vultures. She looked wrecked, hair unwashed, eyes swollen, but there was something new in her gaze, not defeat, calculation. "You think you're so clever," she said quietly. Ethan said nothing. He waited. He had learned the power of silence. She leaned forward. "I knew about the patents in 2018. The words landed like a gut punch. He kept his face blank, but inside everything tilted. "I found the trust documents in your desk when you were away on that consulting trip. I read everything. The LLCS, the routing, the donations." She smiled, small, bitter, triumphant. "I knew it was you all along." Ethan's throat tightened. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because it was perfect," she said. "The money was clean as long as no one knew it came from my husband, and you were so willing to stay invisible. So I let you play your little shadow game." She stood, walked to the window, looked out at the flashing cameras. "I even kept a file, insurance, in case you ever turned on me." Ethan felt the floor drop out. She turned back. "So go ahead, leak more. I'll cry on television tomorrow. I'll say my controlling husband hid his wealth from me, funneled it illegally, and now he's trying to destroy me because I ask for a divorce. The jealous spouse trope, people eat it up. Women will rally. Donors will come back. I'll win by 20 points. For the first time in years, Ethan felt fear. She walked past him toward the stairs. "You built me, Ethan. You can't unbuild me." At the landing, she paused. "Oh, and Marcus, he's already lawyered up. He'll say the affair was consensual, that you knew, that you encouraged it for political access. We have texts, edited, of course." She disappeared upstairs. Ethan sat frozen. He had played 10 moves ahead. She had played 11. October 20 to 25th, 2024. Victoria went nuclear. Morning shows. Primetime specials. A tearful town hall streamed live. "I was trapped in a marriage with a man who controlled every aspect of my life," she said, voice breaking perfectly. "He hid millions from me, used it to buy my career, and when I finally found the courage to stand up to him, he weaponized it." Clips of Ethan, old photos, awkward smiles at events, ran under headlines. "The shadow husband." Sympathy poured in. "I stand with Victoria," trended in ex-celebrity endorsements. GoFundMe for her legal defense fund raised $2 million in a day. Donors trickled back. The party issued cautious support. Ethan watched from the basement, rage boiling so hot he couldn't breathe. She had flipped the board. White was attacking now. He almost broke then, almost walked upstairs and put his hands around her throat. Instead, he opened the final folder, the one he'd never intended to use, the one that would burn everything, her, him, the entire illusion. He hesitated only once. Then he sent it. October 26, 2024, 10 days before the election. Alex Rivera published the kill shot. Exclusive audio and documents reveal Representative Harper knew of husband's hidden funding for years and used it knowingly. Emails from 2018, Victoria to her accountant. Route the investment income through the personal account. "We need it to look organic." Recorded phone call. From the pie, Victoria laughing to Marcus. "He thinks he's so smart with his little trusts. Let him keep paying. As long as no one connects it to the campaign, we're golden." Her own insurance file leaked back to her, weaponized against her. The affair evidence dropped simultaneously. Unedited texts, hotel security footage, timestamps, Marcus's calendar notes. Marcus crumbled first. Subpoenaed, he flipped within hours, testifying to the ethics committee about legislative favors in exchange for access. The House Speaker called for an immediate investigation. Super PACs hemorrhaged funds overnight. The DNC withdrew support. Victoria's poll numbers didn't just drop, they cratered. She locked herself in the bedroom for 2 days. Ethan left food outside the door. She didn't eat. November 4, 2024, 4 days before the election. Victoria stood in the living room at 2 a.m. barefoot, wrapped in a robe, eyes vacant. The television showed her opponent's victory fund ads running non-stop. She looked at Ethan, really, looked at him for the first time in years. "I'm going to lose," she said, voice flat. No tears left. "Yes," he said. She nodded slowly. "I have nothing now, no career, no donors, no future." He didn't contradict her. She walked to the window, stared out at the empty street. Reporters had finally gone. "I really did love you once," she whispered, "in the beginning." Ethan felt something twist in his chest, old buried, almost unrecognizable. "I know," he said. She turned. "Will you stay until it's over?" he considered, then nodded. They sat on opposite ends of the couch in silence until dawn. November 8, Election Day. She conceded at 9:14 a.m. p.m. November 10, she resigned from Congress, effective immediately. November 12, the House Ethics Committee announced a formal probe into campaign finance violations and influence peddling. Marcus was indicted. Victoria disappeared from public view. December 2024. Ethan sold the house. He transferred the remaining patent royalties into a foundation. Scholarships for low-income engineering students, priority to those from trailer parks and forgotten towns. He moved to a small apartment in Pittsburgh. No basement this time. One evening in early December, he set up the go board again. He played a single game against himself. Black opened strong. White fought back desperately. In the end, Black surrounded the center, claimed overwhelming territory. But White had one small group alive in the corner, living on almost nothing. Ethan stared at it for a long time. Then he tipped over his own Black King stone. Resignation. He packed the board away. He never played again. In January 2025, a letter arrived with no return address. Inside, a single photograph. Victoria, thinner, hair cropped short, standing outside a rural community center in western Pennsylvania. She was teaching a class. Sign on the door read, "Civics for Tomorrow." On the back in her handwriting, "I'm starting over. For real this time. No lies. No signature." Ethan held the photo for a long time. Then he burned it in the sink. He didn't forgive her. He didn't hate her anymore either. He simply walked away from the game, from the board, from the war. Outside, snow began to fall. For the first time in 15 years, Ethan Harper felt something like peace, not victory. Just the quiet after the last stone is placed, and the board is finally clear. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for new stories on Vengeance Narratives.